The Viking waterproofing trick that still puts modern coatings to shame. There's something addictive about old survival knowledge. Every now and then you stumble on a trick so bold, so stubbornly effective, that it snaps everything you know about advanced technology in half. Viking waterproofing is one of those tricks. It didn't rely on chemicals in a factory or some shiny lab formula. It came from heat, smoke, patience, and a kind of gritty respect for nature that modern coatings keep trying to copy but never fully match. And you know, the wild part is this wasn't a side skill for them. It was a ritual. A whole process built around turning simple wood into something that could outlast storms, salt water, winter and war. Let's get into the real story behind how they did it. Not the Hollywood version, the survival version. For Vikings, waterproofing wasn't a luxury. It was survival. Long before modern paints and marine coatings existed, they had boats crossing absurd distances, from the freezing North Atlantic to the edges of unknown continents. So they had to find a method that didn't peel, didn't crack, and didn't surrender to rot. What they created was a fusion of fire treatment, oil infusion, and smoke sealing. Each step mattered. Skip one, and the wood stayed ordinary. Follow all three, and the wood turned almost stubbornly resistant to water. And here's the twist. This wasn't just protection. It was a transformation. The wood became harder, darker, more stable. This is why archaeologists still dig up Viking timber that refuses to crumble, even after lying buried in damp soil for centuries. This is where everything changed. Vikings heated the wood gently, never scorching it, never letting it burn. Heat the surface too little, and nothing happens. Heat it too much, and the fibres collapse. But get it right, and the wood squeezes out moisture while the surface tightens. In modern terms, you'd call it structural densification. In Viking terms, it was preparing the timber to accept oil like a dry sponge. The heat didn't just remove moisture. It also shut down many of the microorganisms that love to eat wet wood. That early fire kiss made the surface harder, smoother and less likely to warp when exposed to rain or seawater. Even today, fire-treated wood holds up better than plain lumber, especially in harsh outdoor environments. Once the wood was warmed, the next phase kicked in. The oil. The Vikings used animal fats or fish oils, depending on what was available. These were thick, sticky, slow-moving oils that seeped deep into heated wood. When oil meets porous timber, especially after heat treatment, it locks in. It doesn't wash out easily. It doesn't evaporate. It becomes part of the wood itself. This is the part modern coatings struggle with. Today's waterproof layers sit on the surface. They're films. Nice, shiny, temporary films. Viking oil went in, not on. Once absorbed, it filled tiny channels that water normally travels through, stopping moisture before it ever had a chance to get comfortable. And because the oils were natural, the wood expanded and contracted without cracking. It moved with the seasons instead of fighting against them. Here's the part most people miss. After heating and oiling, Vikings would smoke the wood, not casually, intentionally. Slow, lingering exposure to smoke allowed the carbon-rich particles to cling to the surface, tightening the grain even more. The smoke acted as both a preservative and a stabilizer. It reduced bacterial activity, hardened the outer layer, and added a natural layer of resistance to insects. Ancient cultures all over the world smoked food to make it last. Vikings smoked wood to make it survive oceans. The combination of heat, oil, and smoke created this dark, resilient skin around the timber. Not glossy, not colourful, but incredibly tough. Strong enough to carry warriors, cargo, livestock and legends across brutal northern seas. With all our breakthroughs, you'd expect a modern formula to easily outperform a 1,000-year-old method. But here's the truth. Today's coatings solve the problem differently. They try to keep water off the surface. The Vikings changed the wood so water couldn't get in, even if it tried. Modern coatings fail when scratched. They peel under harsh sun. They crack when the wood shifts. Viking-treated wood kept its waterproofing even after dents, scars or wear, because the protection was underneath the surface, not sitting on it. That's why ancient boats, shields and storage barrels built this way often lasted longer than expected, even under constant exposure to rain and seawater. When you look at it with modern eyes, the Viking technique reads like a masterclass in survival thinking. They didn't try to overpower nature. They partnered with it. Heat from fire, oils from animals, smoke from wood. 3 elements that every homestead or camp already had. Instead of relying on fragile layers, they upgraded the material itself. This method still works today for anyone who loves traditional craftsmanship. Bushcrafters use variations of it. Some homesteaders still swear by it. And once you see how effective it really is, you realize why the legacy of Viking ships, barns and tools lasted long enough to become legend. During World War II, soldiers and engineers studied old techniques for quick, durable waterproofing. Many field manuals referenced ancient oil hardening and heat sealing tricks because they were simple and required no industrial supplies. What the Vikings did wasn't just impressive for their time. It influenced centuries of military survival tactics, especially in remote or resource-limited environments. It's wild how a 1,000-year-old Scandinavian method resurfaced in a global conflict because it simply worked too well to ignore. So, the takeaway isn't to, go back in time. What really stands out is that durable solutions rarely need much complexity. The Vikings showed us you can create long-lasting protection with just basic tools, a lot of patience, and a deep understanding of how materials behave. If you work with wood, build shelters, craft tools, or even just appreciate resilience, well, this old ritual really hits differently. It's a reminder that survival knowledge isn't just about, having the right gear. It's about technique. It's about the skill in your hands and the wisdom you carry forward. And that's exactly why this story belongs here, on Legacy of Survival. Because every trick that stood the test of centuries truly deserves to be remembered, practiced, and passed on. If you enjoyed this deep dive, Make sure you subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who loves real survival history. Let's keep this knowledge alive.